A wedding day is one of the once-in-a-lifetime events in two people who mark it as the day they make vows and form a bond that only death will apart. There are many details in planning a wedding, from invitation to reception venues, from wedding ring and wedding vow speech. But what if Charles Pierce received an invitation to spy on his friend's wedding and gather as much signs of love as he can? While two people planned their most awaited wedding day, Charles Sanders Pierce got an invitation, and on this specific event, he will contribute his analysis, and it will be in this way. If Charles Pierce will take a browse about a soon-to-be-wed couple who his three ingredients of sign, presentment, interpretant, and objective will surely analyze an invitation. A piece of paper with a religious symbol already represents as a sacred event. The flowers, decorations on a wedding invitation could be interpreted as beauty, colorful, or variant atmospheres to a wedding day. Then there are the three modes of signs: indexical, iconic, and symbolic. Still, on a wedding invitation, the two wedding rings beside a couple's name is an object, but it's also an icon that showcases wedding as a celebration to two intertwined partnerships. The date stands as an indexical to the celebration day. Wedding ring is perhaps the most important jewelry on the wedding day, right after the bride's earrings, necklace, and more of her grandma's and mother's gems. The two rings on the pillow that a family friend's boy walks on the aisle are two objects that will tie the couple together as they say their vows. Wedding rings carry the enigma of everlasting love. They are most likely to be similar, but also personalized according to a couple's choice of design. For some couples, they would like to encrypt their other half's name or their wedding date. The encryption based on Pierce's three methods of signs is an example of indexical, as it links to the human body or humanly significant parts, which interpreted as the two are one another's belongings. The two couples' idea on planning their weddings are similar to the process that the bride trims herself in a wedding dress. Are once in a lifetime for a woman, along with her prom and her funeral. The most important part of this should always be about her dress. First, a dress should make her feel like a princess, and every detail on the embroidery must address her femininity. Second, the color must match her views and her character. The color, texture, and even design of the wedding dress carries interpretation and symbols. According to CNN Style, Why So Many Brides Wear White Dress on Their Wedding Day explains it this way. Pristine white fairy tale wedding dress to be worn once they tucked away weren't the standard until relatively recently. Before then, colored dresses were the norm for brides of all classes. While the colorful dress represents cultural myths about luck and wealth with countries in Asia, CNN also reveals that the choice of women to wear a white dress or just a certain design derives from watching their monarchs carry themselves on style princesses and queens would wear on their wedding day. Yes, ordinary people find the monarchs, who are the symbol of wealth and prestigious lifestyle, as an embodiment of luxury. Thus, a white wedding dress and other colorful wedding dresses comes from traditional, cultural, and social status choices. Now, Pierce, with his two eyes, examines the scenery inside a wedding venue. Wedding does not end on bride's dress, but also on her bouquet of flowers, her veil, and the decorations all around the aisle where she will walk. By using Pierce's three ingredients of sign in this context is interpretation. The choice of flowers vary to bride's cultural background and the place she comes from where her choice of flowers grows. For example, many brides would stick in two white roses because it complements their white dress, or red roses because it symbolizes love, while the bride's veil symbolizes another purity and reverence to God. The person walking the aisle, normally the parents, if they are still alive at the moment, represents the two guardians who looked after her and are prepared to give her to someone, the groom, the person in charge of her safety. Wedding is, in short, a cultural tradition that celebrates women's liberty, yet frailty under customs of a religious context. Women's parts in weddings isn't as important as men's. The groom also carries signs with him as he wears his tuxedo and waits along with his three best men for the bride. The groom prepares as anxiously as intensely as the bride. His choice of best men means the interpretation of the word best. In weddings, vestments are representations of devotion to God. Charles Pierce's ideology about one's use of language and the meaning they associate to the world itself explained this way: the meaning of intellectual conception, one should consider what practical consequences. These consequences will constitute the entire meaning of the conception. Therefore, the vestman, along with the maid of honors, and other necessary characters in the weddings are one's ideas to describe their close relative whom they chose to portray those roles because they act as representation. Hence, choosing someone to fit category of the world best, maid of honor, groomsmen, and matron of honors, due to representation of their qualities that can also be interpreted as attribute of words which perfectly stands for them. Aside from the people whose roles are already written on the invitation, the wedding is also about objects that carry the three modes of sign. First will be the two candles which a couple will lit at the same time, are objects that on this context symbolize unity. Then there's the vases, one filled with sand while the other is empty. The bride's mother, who poured the sand to the vase, represents an agreement with the groom's family, and which also implies to the couples an iconic metaphor of sharing a covenant with God. The two doves in the cage which the couples release after the wedding ceremony are objects that symbolize a fire love between the couples. All the symbols hiding behind all the objects in weddings are not just examples of signs, but also enigma and myths that bring luck, unity, and strengthen the couple's love for each other. Love that Pierce would see as all signs of everlasting commitment. Now, after mentioning roles specific invited guests must portray for the sake of keeping the wedding traditions, the words each person fit into a category are words that express under Class 6, speech, act, and performative. From the moment that the bride enters with their parents to the vows, from the kiss the bride to the signing of the marriage contract, the performances each person acts are according to their designed roles and scripts during the wedding. Even the priest will not be there standing without his Bible or any religious texts and humor about becoming a couple. Any religious mediator present on a wedding surely carries the power of languages with them as they deliver guidance to the bride and groom. The religious mediator acts as a representation of God to reconcile two parties between the bride and the groom to become one. Any religious text symbolizes oath, which is the commandment of God in this case. When the mediator speaks about what not and what to do, as the two parties become one, he holds the objective to the consequences which the brides and the groom are prepared to perform. But the question is why there are I do's to weddings, and what do they stand for as the immense power of language plays like life and death agreement. Peter and Thomas Lackman, The Social Construction of Reality, a treatise in the sociology of knowledge, Penguin Books, page 33 to 61, says, Berger and Lackman argue language is the most important tool of objection. In Class 6, speech, act, and performatives, objections occurs in words, actions, and objects between the couple. The powers of language has the ability to transcend the here and now. Its power lies in the fact that it can represent absent things by words, actions, and by use of objects. Weddings are a ceremony where two people celebrate their love and through the actions and exchanges and I-do's portray commitment and commanding one another for everlasting love. The speech from two parties are mostly personalized and follows one theme: sincerity. Weddings are no joke. Vows are like giving an oath to your motherland to fully surrender yourself and means you are objected to do what you said. Also, weddings are in religious ceremonies, and the mediator acts as witness along with others. Weddings are basically a civil union where two people swear from laughter and sorrow, love and pain, till death they will part. Vows are a form within societal norm or judgment over what is a promise. Without the speech, for example, two couples can just tie the knot, or in this case, the knots are the two silver or gold rings that look like handcuffs, and voila, call it commitment. Till death, no one can separate them. However, because every word of the oath repeatedly means of promise, hope, and trust, language assures that both parties would transcend the reality based on every word. As Pierce describes science as something which stands to somebody for something in some respect or capacity, it addresses somebody, that is, it creates in the mind of that person an equivalent sign. Even though wedding vows are originally practiced in Western countries and Christian-predominant nations, vows in countries where Islam and Hinduism are the two main religions, vows are not meant by every word, but by tradition practice such as giving dowry or sacrifice to the family of the bride, performing intimate conversation with the high priest to confirm the couple's love. While the kiss of bride is the confirmation that the bride and the groom perform their act of love to God with patience. Don't you know that a wedding can last for 3 hours, but an average is 25 to 35 minutes? It comes from the stages of relationship they went through, and to celebrate their accomplishment in loving one another. By spoken declaration that the bride and the groom is now a family, but also on the paper they are one. Signing a marriage contract is an indextical sign as two people agree to share both rights to one another's property. According to Jill Austin's Performance Utterance, language is not only about describing the world, it is a way for a subject to act upon. After the two parties sign a contract, they perform it under the locutionary act production of meaning, the simple act of saying something meaningful. While Voltaire's Zadig and other examples above, the sign represents, stands for, or refers to an object, event, action, repeated process, state of affairs, an emotional situation, and so on. Marriage contract is a state of affairs, and once completed, becomes a certificate. This certificate is similar to a law that the two people are accountable to follow. Therefore, divorce is another way to separate two parties, making a marriage contract like a pastry crust meant to be broken and just cannot be restored. This is why weddings are once in a lifetime, and their expenses is a lifetime investment. It requires lengthy decision-making, weighing the pros and cons before someone takes action. It can be beyond words when one decides to disobey the disagreement. It can be more expensive as a wedding. Another enigma in weddings is the cutting of the cake. After the bride and the groom made their toast, cutting cake together and serving it to one another with their miniature figurine on top of the cake is an example of an icon that stands for the wife and the groom on the top of the sweet, frosty, over-the-top love. They are the superstars, and by exchanging a slice of cake to demonstrate the love of guests and how it evokes sharing. This will be the last part of the wedding. That's it. They owe to share till that they will part. Then the speech between the newlyweds to their guests is how we also encounter signs that we fail to comprehend, such as someone's changed behavior, emotional expressions. An honest speech from two parties and a speech from their chosen people towards them evokes strong emotion. There will be tears, laughter, and non-stop giggles. This emotional performance evokes through spoken words is under performative utterance per locutionary act by saying, where the speech act can produce effects that goes beyond the intention. They happen by the fact of saying, even when not planned through, demonstrate that language moves the world around it.